Hello and welcome back to Miniverse. So recently I've been looking through my backlog of models and came across this little tank that was meant to go with last year's Tank Diorama. So, let's build the sequel. Now let me tell you, building military vehicles coming from Star Wars and Warhammer as well. Oh boy, there are so many small parts, and due to my own negligence it felt like none of the parts fitted correctly without either too much pressure leading them to snap or ping across the whole room. But thankfully we got there in the end. So with this video I'm going to play it a little bit slower just to see what it's like and aim to show you exactly what I'm doing, like how I cut this foam up for instance. And damn, isn't this sound really satisfying? As always, make sure to wear a proper mask while doing this and try to keep the room ventilated, as I remember once I didn't and I got quite the headache. Now we can move to the base of the diorama. Now when using clay you have to make sure to have some water next to you for two reasons. Firstly, to keep your clay nice and moist. And also to make that clay nice and moldable. I also used the clay to fill in the gaps between the wooden base of the diorama and the foam, and funnily enough to fill in some gaps in the tank as well. So let's use my favourite and most hated material, VMS Smart Mud. The results look amazing from this clay, but it barely has any adhesion, which is why I cut lines into the diorama so it can stick onto it better. If you do use this material, a good tip is to keep your fingers nice and clean, otherwise it won't adhere to the other clay around it and it will just keep sticking to your fingers. Earlier I 3D printed some craters, so I stuck them down, but to be honest, in the end you can barely notice them. Also, with the lack of adhesion from that clay, it's great to add some tank tracks onto the diorama for a little bit of realism. Now onto the ground texture, we are going to soak that clay in watered down Mod Podge or PVA glue and sprinkle fine dirt that I baked in the oven earlier. Once the diorama is coated, I dripped some isopropyl alcohol all over it to break any surface tension for the next layer of PVA. Finally, let's paint the tank. For the colour of the Sherman I used Vallejo olive green as the base coat. With the base coat dry, I stippled on some light grey onto the tank for his little winter coat. So with the base coating out of the way, it's time to paint the diorama. So this was more of a practice paint job for me, as I knew I was going to cover most of this in snow later on to be in theme with last year's diorama. But for the base coat I used Rhinox hide for a nice brown undercoat. Then spraying horizontally, I added highlights to all the ridges using pale brown from Vallejo. After that I used Gobi Brown from Scale 75 to add some nice green texture to make it look more like the earth. I sprayed this wherever I felt like, just because I thought it looked cool. Then after highlighting I used Wildwood Contrast to add shadows to the diorama. The way I did this was the same way I highlighted, but from the other side of the diorama so that we have a nice light source. Now I know I wanted to add some snow, but the question was what type and how much. So I did a test of snow sprinkles which dries like melted snow, but it didn't really give me the coverage I wanted, so I tried to dry brush snow paste all over the diorama for some thicker snow. Afterwards I added some woodland scenic snow on top. I think it needs to be a bit thinner to pull off the snow effect in this scale. Maybe shove it in a blender, I don't know, maybe don't. I'll try this in another video and I'll let you know. With the bulk of the diorama now done, let's revisit our little Sherman boy and fix him up. I painted the chassis and the tracks of the tank black and any bits of metal in a basic silver. After looking at some reference images, I had to go at the tracks and found that Dirty Downs Rust was such an amazing paint for this. It really pulled off the looks of a dirty tank track. Next was to add some manual chipping, so basically I reverse highlighted the tank by adding the base colour over all the areas I'd have highlighted or that would be used in real life. I also added some snow paste onto the tank so we can stick him down and clog his treads with snow and sprinkles. I also got some snow sprinkles and put that all in the treads of the tank to give that dirty look. I also just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's been watching my shorts recently. They're a lot wackier and a bit cringier than these videos, but I appreciate it nevertheless. And there you have it, a really quick tank diorama. As always, I've been Reese. Make sure to like the video to appease the YouTube gods, and check out my Instagram for more behind the scenes. Peace.